I got a call from my team and just said, Chris Rock is doing a movie. And I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. I know Chris. This is great. That'd be cool. And they sent it over and really, had wanted me to look at it. And I loved the script. I thought it was amazing and really funny and awesome. And I'm a huge fan of Chris's work, particularly his film work. Really particularly his documentary that he had done. And I remember when I read this script, I was like, oh, he's taking this up a notch. He's kind of like, it feels like this film was almost in the same kind of caliber as that documentary, which I thought was really, really, really special. I played Chelsea Brown in the film. She is a journalist. She writes for the New York Times. They have not been kind to Chris Rock's character, Andre Allen, through the years. He's understandably reluctant to spend time with her. He spends an entire day with her, giving her an interview. The kind of interview that you don't get unless you're a big star like he is, and unless it's a big film like the one he's trying to promote. And so there's sort of special circumstances you get within the sort of Hollywood context, and it's really cool to share that as a story idea to other people, because I don't think people really see how that normally works out. And that was really fun for me, playing a journalist and really being able to have those investigative questions. And I interviewed a bunch of my friends who do who are journalists, and really kind of got into that kind of mindset, that kind of personality that she was. Chris was like, I'm writing this and it's really great and I want it to be better. So however whatever that takes in rehearsal process or rewriting things, like, he was completely open to. He wasn't precious about anything, which was really important, because there's especially where there's so many different people on board and so many different dynamics, specifically to Chelsea. She's a really complex character, so it needed that. It needed to not just be something one-dimensional on the page, but really feel like a real person. And just see these two people who just have a very different perspective on life. They see the same things, they see the reality of it, they see the stress of it, but their approach to how they deal with it are completely opposite. And that makes it funny and interesting. This was Chris's movie, and he played us all, like, I would say, like, he was a conductor, and he played us all like different instruments, and he would talk about that even with the other actors, the other comedians, and he would say, each different comedian hits a different note. They have their thing, and you got to be able to know where their sweet spot is and really guide them there. And sometimes for some people he'd give lines to, and other ones he'd just give them the right kind of questions to sort of direct them. And each person he just seemed to do, and you'd know exactly that moment. Chris would just have like different comedians who'd come to work, and he would just tell them, just come through. Like, we're gonna shoot something today and I just want you to be in it. And so he'd just get them and he'd train a camera on them and they'd start improvising and doing whatever. And then he'd keep going. And we were all like holding ourselves. Like, it felt like we needed to have diapers at all times on set. Like, it was just like ridiculous. Anybody else would have cut a long time ago, but he took it to that sweet spot. He knows his instruments. He knows his craft. He knows it inside and out. And I have to say, he played me in the same way. He took me to a whole other level than I'd ever been before. And I thought I was the one giving him a hard time about my character and about me being in this movie, but he's the one who really took it to the next level. He finessed it. He finessed the hell out of it. It was damn good. Chris Rock plays Andre Allen. He is a comedian turned serious actor, or so he would like. He has kind of gone through the ups and downs. He's really famous for this series of movies called Hammy the Bear, which is really funny. But that's sort of his like big claim to fame. He was, he did stand up, and then he got into these series of movies, and they're like the highest grossing films of all time. And he's just the biggest comedian in the world. And now he's on a totally different part of his life. He's been producing in some really serious fare, and he's getting married to Gabrielle Union's character, who's sort of like a Kim Kardashian type. She has her own reality TV show, and he's sort of like in the swing of things. He's at that sweet spot that you imagine for a lot of people to think of, like, that's when you feel like you've made it. He should feel like he's made it, and he's there. But the problem is, his films aren't doing as well as he'd like them to be. He's not seeming able to transition from where he was as a comedian and as a success into being able to be more serious. New York is the best backdrop, character, partner, co-actor you could possibly have. I've been lucky enough to do multiple different films in New York, but nothing like this. I mean, we were actually, in Union Square, in the thick of it, like, and it's Chris Rock, like, literally babies in carriages who can't speak would be like, Chris Rock! Like, I mean, it was just like ridiculous. It was awesome. And we're in the coffee shop, we're just in all of these different locations. Half the time when I'm in New York, I'm driving by all of our locations. It's just so, they're so us. And that's just awesome, because you have to have that. I mean, otherwise you have two people talking to each other all day, and if the locations and the space in New York didn't seethe with so much energy like it does, especially in New York where everyone's walking around feeling like wet dog smell and like trying not to touch themselves. I mean, it's just amazing because you really get it. You get this like really tangible experience of the city, and it's fun, it's fun to watch these two people on the train talking to each other and jumping turnstiles, and it feels like you're on this journey with them. You want to read, you understand what's the even point of doing an interview like that, because you'd want someone to have that experience and share it with you. When you have a bunch of comedians together in a room, you just sort of sit and grin, and are really happy. In my particular case, where you're actually playing the sort of straight guy, you're playing the audience member, so I can just sit there and actually laugh. I'm not supposed to be funny, thank God, in that room. And you're just supposed to take it in, and just really go for it. And it was incredible to see Tracy Morgan and everybody just doing their thing. They're so good, and like take for take, we'd still get what we needed to. Like the scene would still be there and constructed, but it was different every time, and it was cool because of the way that Chris edited it. You kind of keep going back in there, so you don't have to have this like perfect linear written scene. You get the gist of it, but because you keep jumping back in there and you keep having fun and referencing it, you can have what you feel is a real moment, like really going to someone's house and everyone being together and on top of each other and making fun of each other and loving each other, and just like that family dynamic. For me, it's like home for the holidays, and you come home and everyone's ribbing, and it just feels, it feels like love, it feels like family, and it felt like you need to have that in the film, because otherwise you get caught up in like, you're in New York and you're with this guy who's famous, but where's the heart? Like you need some heart in there, and this is that moment that gives you the heart, that gives you the juxtaposition, that makes you appreciate how far he's come, how vulnerable he feels then to keep it. It's about comedy, and it's about relationship, and it's about celebrity, and it's about, it's about sobriety, and it's about life, like it really, there's ways you can break this movie down and realize that there's a lot more to this movie than just going, oh, Chris Rock's got a comedy that's coming out. It's much deeper than that, and it's nice to kind of put it in something, a tier like that, like top 5. He comes from a really different perspective, and not everybody could pull it off. It's not something put on by him. It's something he's really experienced, and because he's who he is, he's been able to find the funny even in those worst moments. And so that's why he can let us laugh at stuff that normally we'd never give ourselves permission to laugh at. And that's what's really amazing. That's what you feel in this movie. He lets you be able to laugh at things that you normally wouldn't. And if it's not his joke to tell, he lets someone else tell it. Like, he's more than okay for that.